Good evening. Welcome to our Canvas webinar for May. This is Pam Batchelor with North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, Digital Teaching and Learning team. I'm so excited to have you here with us tonight. I do have a few of my colleagues from Digital Teaching and Learning that are with us tonight, so I will introduce them and let them speak a little bit about their role and their interests. So we'll start tonight with Lindsay.
Hey everyone, glad to be here. I am the Southwest Regional Consultant for the Digital Teaching and Learning team.
Thank you, Lindsay. We're glad to have you tonight. And Molly?
Hi, my name is Molly Holloman. I am the Eastern Educator on Loan. So I represent the East Side, and I live and work also in Dare County.
Yes, Molly is always at the beach, and I'm always jealous. She keeps us updated on our vitamin C. And then also, of course, with us tonight, we have Christy, who's our Canvas goddess, and she's going to be talking a lot of the content tonight about picking up with our webinar that we had in April of remote learning. But we're going to do a couple logistical things first. I want to make sure everyone can hear us. So that's going to be our first question of the day is, can you hear me? And if you can't hear me, that's probably not good. We have Lindsay and Molly will be helping with anybody. So Darlene posted a question. In the webinars, everyone is muted by default. So just an FYI, if you do need to be unmuted for some reason, you're free to raise your hand in the attendee panel. But for most of the time, we keep everyone muted just in case there's any background noise. All right, looks like everyone can hear. Yay, that doesn't always happen, so I'm glad about that. The next question is, could you see our screen? So just a minute ago, you saw Christy's screen with the slideshow. So if you can answer the poll, one little funny thing about GoToWebinar, if you have the screen maximized where Christy's sharing her screen, sometimes it doesn't let you click on the polls to respond. So we found out that you have to kind of minimize that screen a little bit and then it'll let you click to respond on the polls. All right, one last question for everyone tonight, and that is, does your district have the paid version of Canvas? And that's just helpful for us to know as we go through the webinar tonight. It usually means you have a red icon on the NC Ed Cloud. When you log in, there's a red Canvas icon. If you're Wake County or CMS, you do have the paid versions. So just covering the bases there. So we'll give everyone about 5 more seconds. All right, and so it does look like we have a majority that do have the paid version, and then we have some folks that are unsure. All right, so let Christy say hi.
Hey, hi. Sorry, I thought I had myself muted and I did not. But hello, everybody. Just wanted to say, yeah, a quick hi to you. If you haven't been with us on the previous webinars this year and don't know me, I am the team lead and strategic customer success manager for Canvas in North Carolina. I live in North Carolina, Greensboro specifically. Was a Spanish teacher in ITF, worked in the district, supported media coordinators and all kinds of professional development, things like that. Been using Canvas since 2011 and now work for Canvas and have been here for 2 years. So I'm excited to be with you and thank you all for joining us, especially late in the evening. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Yes, absolutely. On Teacher Appreciation Week, nonetheless, right? We appreciate that you guys are taking some of your time to be with us tonight. I do have one slide here of logistics, just to let you know for your attendance tonight. GoToWebinar is capturing your attendance. You do not have to sign in. There's no sign-in form or anything like that. When you use the link that GoToWebinar gave you when you registered, it tracks your attendance. And then within 5 business days after tonight's webinar, you will receive an email from me, Pamela Batchelor, at dpi.nc.gov with your CEU certificate for 0.1 CEU, which is equal to 1 hour of credit. It is recommended for digital learning competency credit. However, you must follow whatever your local rules are that your district or charter school has set up for submission of credit, and they approve your credit type. So they are the ones that have the final word on what type of credit you receive for these webinars. You will also receive with your CEU certificate a link to tonight's recording. This session is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back over everything that Christy's going to show us tonight, and then you also get a copy of the slide deck. The slide deck, if you didn't catch the link at the beginning of the slideshow, it's also in our chat, and Lindsay just posted it again in our chat to click on. And then I'm also going to be putting it in the handout section in just a second. It's uploading right now. So you'll have a PDF copy of that slide deck for you to be able to click on all the links that Christy has given us. All right, I think that takes care of the logistics. Let's get the show on the road.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam. All right. So this is our last webinar for the 2019-2020 school year. And just wanted to remind you that on the slide deck, there is a link to the webinar recording. So as Pam said, you're going to get an email from her that will have the recording link for tonight's session. But if you have missed, because really this was designed as a getting started series where we really built in slow increments over the year of how to get started utilizing Canvas for teaching and learning. And so if you missed previous recordings, you can always, or previous webinars, you can always go back and watch those recordings. And it's really great because sometimes I can go at a rapid pace during the live sessions. So to be able to go back, maybe, go back and forth between screens, looking at the webinar, and then practicing something in your own course, you have the ability to pause, rewind, fast forward when you're watching those recordings. So just wanted to remind you that if you don't know how to do something that I'm skimming over tonight, because I am specifically focusing on analytics tonight. So if you don't know how to do something that I've mentioned, then you always can go back and reference any of these previous webinars, including how to create things like discussions pages, quizzes, assignments, all of announcements, all of those things are in previous webinars from this year. Also, there is a survey for you. If you will please complete that, give us feedback as we're planning for our webinars for next year. That survey is open until Monday, May 11th, and we really do want to hear your feedback, so please take some time after the end of this session, and I know Pam will put the link in the chat again to the survey at the end for you to give us that feedback so we know what you need next year. So as I mentioned, last month we really focused on just rebooting really quickly, like how can you get started fast and easy in Canvas? How do you connect with students and and parents through all the different ways that Canvas allows you to communicate? How do you add video of yourself so your students can see your face and hear your voice that they're missing so badly? Also, how to create announcements and then use the calendar and to add assignments. This month, we wanted to focus on, you've obviously all started in your remote journey with Canvas, and we want to talk about taking that a little bit further. We want to talk about how you can monitor usage and impact so that you can help to continue to support and provide the resources for your students that they need. I'm also going to touch on course outcomes, learning standards, and learning mastery grading, because we know grading practices look a little different right now, and I want to be able to show you how you can continue to monitor progress for your students and see where they're at in terms of their mastery of learned course standards without actually assigning traditional grades to those. And then, or actually looking at the traditional grades, but instead looking at per standard, per outcome, what that student's mastery level is. We'll also talk about some reporting specifically in new quizzes that aligns to outcomes, and then hopefully allow for some Q&A. Please do use the question feature to ask questions because all of those ladies here that are here to help support us tonight will be there to make me stop and take a pause if you have a question. I will pause periodically as well, and they'll be answering some of those in chat. So tonight, again, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about how you can use Canvas to monitor, your students' progress, their success, their engagements. And I wanted to look at some of the things that teachers can see when you're in your Canvas courses. So if you're using Canvas for students to access content and activities, then you have lots of different ways to see exactly, how they're progressing, where they need additional supports, and also just how engaged they are in the activity level that they have in your course. So we're going to take a look at course analytics, specifically the new analytics, but I'll touch on the old ones. A couple things that I'm going to mention tonight. We have an old version and a new version. So we have an old analytics and a new analytics. We have a old or classic quizzes, and we have a new quizzes. And I'm going to show you both for both of those features, but just know that we do have both old and new versions, and we're moving towards the new versions for everyone, but at this current time, we support both the old and the new. But we're going to look at analytics. We're going to look at what your grade book can tell you, both traditional and learning mastery. We're going to look at some quiz statistics, how you can look at real quickly and identify missing assignments. We're going to show you how you can see page views and participations, including the last time a student viewed a page in your course and the last time they participated. We're going to look at how you can see if our students have viewed something or not, specific resources, and participated or not participated in specific assignments discussions. And also how you can look at those communication logs that you have between you and the student. I'm going to jump into my instance so I can actually show you these things in Canvas. I'm not just going to talk about them, but I did want to point out that for everything that I'm talking about tonight, I have linked out to our guides. And our instructor guides show you specifically how to do the things, again, that I'm talking about. So in addition to having the recording, you can access these guides and see step-by-step instructions with screenshots for everything that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to jump into this course, and I'm also going to mention and apologize in advance that this is a demo course, so I don't have great data. I don't have a lot of students. I don't have, obviously, a lot of activity because I don't have real students in my Canvas Sandbox instance. But I will show you the features. So just know that I don't have the best data. It's not the prettiest, and certainly in your courses, you're going to see a richer, fuller picture of your students than what I can show you here. Want to start with new analytics. So on my home page on the right hand side, I have a button that says new analytics. If yours does not say new analytics, it is because your district or school Canvas admin has decided not to turn it on. However, they may have set it to allow. So I'm going to show you how to check, because I really recommend you turn on new analytics if it's available to you and it's not currently on in your course. The new analytics provides much richer data than the old analytics. So if you don't see new analytics on the right hand side of your screen when you log in, you can go to settings in the bottom left of the toolbar. And then you have, yours probably is going to pop onto course details, but you're just going to go over to that tab for feature options. There's lots of different feature options. Some things your district or school have turned on by default, and some things they've just set to allow. If they have set that to allow, then that's up to you in your individual courses to determine whether or not you want to turn them on. One of the things that I'm mentioning is new course and user analytics. So if you did not see it on your homepage, then it probably looks like this and it's toggled off. I'm going to suggest that you toggle it on. Again, if you don't have it at all, if it's not there, then that means your district or school has made a decision not to yet make it available to you in your courses. And I will show you what the old analytics looks like later, just so you do see that you have some visibility into student activity even without new analytics. But I want to start with new analytics. So I click on that button on my home page, and that takes me to the new analytics and the course grade tab. Now, you'll also notice in Canvas, we've started adding these slide out help menus for a lot of features. These link you out to guides also if you want to know how to do specific things in Canvas. And generally they're tied to whatever feature you're currently accessing. You can always close that, slide it out, slide it back in, and you can also select not to show it again if you know how to use that feature. So that's something pretty new we've added in that hopefully helps you when you're using something new in Canvas. So again, I'm on new analytics, and it first comes to the course grade tab. And on this course grade, I can see for my students, and most of you will probably have a lot more grades in here, but I can see what those assignments are. I could click on an assignment and I see lots of different information. So I can see the average grade for that assignment. I can see low, high, how many students are missing that assignment, and how many students submitted it late. If I click on missing, it'll show me, I don't have any there, but if I had some, it would show me what students had submitted that or had not yet submitted that. And if I click on late, it shows me the students that submitted it late. In both of those boxes, you also saw a little email icon up here, and that allows me to message students. So I could message students who scored. Let's say I wanted to message students that scored in the 90 to 100% range, tells me who that student is, and I could say, way to go, great job. Or I could message students who scored in the 0 to, let's say, 70 range. If I determined that 70 was competency, then I could message those students and say, giving you an extra attempt, here's some resources to review, or I want you to do this activity, and then resubmit. Then it would allow me to do that. And you could see that it pops those students in a blind copy so they don't see each other's names. And I could also just take those out automatically. It also will allow me to message students who are missing an assignment. So I can say, hey, please submit this. Or if there's something that you're doing about late work submitted, you could also message those students who submitted that late. You may just remind them that this was due on this date. Please, in the future, let me know if you're going to be late, because we do know that right now during this remote learning journey we're all on, our students have different access to devices and connectivity. So we need to make sure that we're being, respectful of that and understanding of that. And so I know a lot of our late policies we may employ when we're in face-to-face instruction, we're being very lenient on now. But if you did want to still send some type of gentle reminder, you could do that. Again, clicking on each of those assignments gives me that data. Another thing that I can do is I can compare a specific student to the course. So here I can have, and my students would be color-coded. I could have different students, and I would see. Now, Emma hasn't submitted anything in here, so I don't see her. But I would be able to have 3 items that I could compare if I needed to or I wanted to. You also can compare sections, so you could see how students in different sections performed, so that you could, sometimes we know there's a difference between how our students perform at different sections, different periods. So that would give you a good idea, an analysis comparison there. In addition to being able to look at this data in a chart view, you also can export it into a CSV file, or you can also look at it in a data table. So if you prefer the data view, then you can see those assignments, you can see the due dates, and you can see the average score. Clicking on that starts giving you those same options that you saw in the chart. So I'm going to go back to my chart because I actually prefer to look at it that way. And so here I'm back to that course grade. In addition to the course grade chart here in analytics, you also have some weekly online activity analytics. Notice that these things are as of, and this is May 5th, it's yesterday. It does take about 24 hours for these to populate. So just do be mindful of that. But here it's a great, especially in this time when our students are online, you can look at weekly online activity, and that's in terms of both page views and participation. So you can see, those spikes, you can see just hovering over kind of shows you those average page views as well as total page views. Again, I can click into that, and that will give me more information. I can download it again into a CSV file. I can see total page views. I can see the 4 students who did view a specific or viewed pages. Or I could see the students who did not view those pages. I also can look at a specific resource, and I can say who did course assignments, who didn't view course assignments, who viewed course assignments. And I could see that one student did. I also could say who participated. didn't participate, and also have those options to message them if need be. And it's blind copied so they don't see the other students' names. Again, I could see viewed, didn't view, participated, didn't participate. For each student here, I can see their total page views and participations for this week. I also can see per resource the number of students who, the number of page views and the number of participations per individual resource. I can go back to my students and I can click on a specific student and I get the same type of data for a specific student. So I can see whether it was late or, and for this one was missing, it's because I just entered the grade instead of the student actually submitting it. And that's just because I did it from the grade book. But you could see if it was late, if it was on time, and the score. You can also see weekly online activity for that student. And you can also see your communication. So if you'd had any communication with the student during that week, it would be visible on that tab as well. I'm going back to my course analytics. I also can look at, this is my favorite page on the analytics. I can look at students and I can see my students and their grade, percent on time, their last time they participated. So that's actually like submitting something, taking an action. The last time they viewed a page, I can see the number of page views and I can see the number of participations per student. So this is a really great snapshot for you of how your students are interacting with your course. So this is really, really rich data that I'm really excited that we're able to share with you in Canvas. And again, you could switch back to individual students to kind of get a better idea and view of their individual activity. As I showed you earlier, how on the course analytics, you could change it to a data table. You can also change it to a data table for the just individual students. So if I click into a specific week, I see exactly what that student did during that week. So again, this isn't a lot of great data, but I can look and see everything that the student did that week in terms of page views and participations. So this gives you a really great overview of how, again, your students are interacting in your course. I'm going to go back home and I'm going to pause for any questions on new analytics before I show you what old analytics has, just in case you don't have new analytics. Do we have any questions, Pam?
So Christy, we did have a really good question come in. So what happens when you send that message to the students? Where does it go?
Okay, so that message would go to their inbox in Canvas. But it also, depending on, and this is very dependent upon their own notification settings, if they have their notification settings set to be get an email, because most students all have their email in there as default by most of your PowerSchool syncs. If they do have that notification turned on, that when they are added to a conversation, they get an email, then they would also get an email. But that is an individual setting for students, but they do absolutely get that in their Canvas inbox. And a lot of students are using the student app, so they would see it as a notification on the app that they had an inbox message to. Great question. Are there any other questions about that?
That was the only one so far. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I'm going to show you what it looks like if you had old analytics, because it's still a great tool. So if you don't have new analytics turned on or available, then let's go back and I'm going to show you the old analytics. And so if you don't have new analytics, then it would just say view course analytics. And when you go into view course analytics, it has a different look. You see that. But you can still see per week overall in your course number of participations, number of page views. You also can see it's not clickable, so it's not like you can click into it like you could on the new analytics, but you can see overall, missing, late, on time. You can see your average grades and those score range. And you also can see per student their page views, participations, submissions, on time, late, missing, and current score. Now you don't see the last date of time of page view or last date and time of participation, but you still get a lot of that data. You also can click into individual students and you get a very similar types of information or graph. And for both individual students, which you could scroll through them here, individual students, and when we were on the course analytics, you can change that to a data table if you prefer to look at that data table. So again, that's if you did not have new analytics turned on. I'm going to go back and turn that back on in my course just because I do like the new analytics personally. I think it gives you a little bit more detail. And then I'm just going to show you a couple other things that you can do to look at your students' activity and interactions. So I'm going to go to my People tab in my course. And so for an individual student, let's go to, I'm going to go to Olivia. We'll see how much she has done. I'm going to go to her user details. And I'm going to go to her access report. And on her access report, I can see for individual assignments, the times viewed, times participated, and last viewed, approximately what time that was. I can also look at an interactions report between myself and Olivia. So for any and this is actually for all of I'm a teacher for her in multiple courses. So I can see those interactions that I had with her in each of those courses. That's great if you're trying to provide some at-risk student reporting, or you're having a parent-teacher conference, or you're working with any instructional support personnel or guidance counselors, that you have that information available to you to show that the different communications that you've had with the students. I'm going to go back. In addition to let me go back. I want to show you one more thing. You also have an access report. Oh, I showed you that. Sorry. I just remembered. All right, so I'm going to go back to the people page. I'm on the people page. So I showed you what you could see in terms of individual students, but you also, just at the top of the people page of your little snowman icon, you also have a student interactions report for the whole course. So you can see those interactions that you've had with the students in the course. Also, on the people page and also on the grades page, you have a really great tool that allows you to see a student's, this is called a context card. So if you just click on the student name, it will give you a really quick snapshot of how the student, you could link out to them to see more information, their analytics. You also could see their grades. If you wanted to jump to grades, you could jump to analytics there. It will show you the last 10 graded items, as well as their participation and page views in comparison to the rest of the class. Now, I only have 4 graded items here. That's why it doesn't show me 10, but it'll show you 10. You can see the student's current grade, how many missing assignments, and how many late assignments. And so this is a really easy way to just get a really good view of your students in your course. And this is also, certainly you could screenshot that to share that and have a conversation with a parent, again, or guidance counselor, someone. I love that it has the participation and page views in comparison to the rest of the class. That's something that I think is very useful if you have a student who is not performing as well as expected, to be able to show possibly that could be one of those root causes. So all of the guides for the things I just showed you are linked on this slide. So just as a reminder, you can go out and look at those if you need to review them. I'm also going to now move into quizzes, new quizzes, and grades, although I'm going to do it I'm going to look at the grades first, and then I'll go to quizzes and new quizzes. So in your traditional grade book, in Canvas, you have lots of information at your fingertips here. I mean, obviously, if you've graded assignments, the grades are there. If students have submitted assignments you haven't yet graded, they're there. You can set things to be complete, incomplete if you want to, and all of that's covered in when we talk about our on the webinar, that when we go over assignments, how to create assignments, then we talk about how to set them up to be complete, incomplete. But we have different color coding in the grade book, which is really nice for teachers. You can go in and view and look at those statuses if you needed just a reminder of what each of those colors represented. And if you needed to change those colors, you also can change them. But you can see for each of your students what their obviously current grade is, their assignment group grades, but then those missing and late statuses also. From the grade book, you can also message students who haven't submitted yet, haven't been graded, or scored less than a specific score, scored more than a specific score. And you can also, if you wanted to set a default grade, so everyone had done it, so you just wanted to set that as complete, then I can set that default grade as complete. And those students got that. Now, obviously, I wouldn't have done that unless they had submitted the work, but just as a matter, if you didn't want to have to go through individually and check them all, if it was something that you were just making sure they participated in, then you certainly could do that as well by using that default grade. If you have grading periods in your course, then you can also filter your gradebook by grading period. I don't in this course, but it would be there. You can also filter your gradebook by assignment groups, modules, sections, and student groups, and you can arrange it in any way that you want to see the grades displayed. So that's really helpful. Any questions about context cards, gradebook, or the interaction reports that I mentioned or demonstrated?
No questions so far, Christy.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go into another one of my courses to show you quizzes and quiz statistics. So quizzes can be used, they don't have to just be quizzes, which I'm sure you know, but it could be used as, just a regular assignment. It's just a quiz building feature that's going to allow you to have self-graded questions, paragraph questions, things that you have, question, response. That's when you're going to use the quizzing feature. And as I mentioned, we do have two of them. And I'm going to show you classic quizzes first. So this is our classic quizzes. So when I have created this classic quiz, my students have taken it, I'm going to be able to go over to quiz statistics. And when I go to quiz statistics, I can see a lot of good data. I can see an average score, high score, low score, all of this different information, including the average time it took to complete. I can see a question breakdown. I could even click on the students who responded certain answers. We know we have those questions that we know are going to trick up our student or be a little tricky for our students. Not that we're trying to trip them up, but we know they're going to be tricky. And we know, like, if they choose a specific response, then we know what that misunderstanding is. And so if you have a student that's selected something that you know is going to be able to clear that up with an additional resource, then you could click that respondents and say, okay, I know Guy and Bill need this additional piece of information or reminder in order to not make that mistake again. Then you can easily identify those students. You can see the percent of your students who answered those correctly. So it's really great that you have all of this student and item analysis right here on this quiz statistics page, but you could also download the student analysis or item analysis into CSV files if you wanted to be able to use that in Excel for any reason. But if you're comfortable using this format, then you certainly don't have to download it. It's the same information. Gonna go back to my quiz. So that was quiz statistics. Masha gonna show you moderate this quiz. On moderate this quiz, you can see the students, you can see the number of attempts, because sometimes you can set a quiz up, or anytime you want to, you can set a quiz up to allow for multiple attempts, and you can decide how many attempts a student can have. So you can see how many times they have attempted it, how long it took them to finish, if they have attempts left, how many, what their score is. You can also click in the individual students here, and you can see exactly how they answered. So you could provide comments if you wanted to on their answers or responses. You also, if you realize there's something that you want to give credit for, you can change the point values that were given for that response. And you can even do fudge points. A lot of times people do fudge points whenever they realize they made a mistake on a quiz and need to give those points back to all students. So you have that information available. And then you also have this view log. And I apologize that this is not a great log here, but I will show you in the Canvas guide, which has a better view of it. Mine doesn't have a lot because that was a dummy student that had not really taken the quiz. But when you go into view log, where we were just at, you can see when the student started the quiz. If they took additional attempts, you could click on those attempts and see their action log. So you can see when they started, what order they answered their questions in, if they went back and reread questions, if they stopped viewing the Canvas quiz taking page, if they navigated away, when they resumed. I love this because it allows you to see what if there's a question that students have answered multiple times. See, number 4 is here twice, number 3 is here twice. I might be able to identify those things my students are having problems with, even if they ended up scoring well on those items. But I can see the ones that they had to go back to multiple times, or the ones they skipped and went back to. So that's a really great resource for you. I always say it's almost like you're sitting beside the student while they're taking the quiz, because you can see exactly what they're doing while they take it. So that's available for you in the view log. In addition to quiz statistics and moderate this quiz, you also can go to show student quiz results, which will show you the students who haven't taken it, or the have taken it, haven't taken it, and it would let you jump out to that same information. Moderate this quiz. I'm going to go back there because I skipped something. You also can allow students extra attempts if you wanted to let someone, let's say that you'd only allowed one attempt for the whole class, but you know that you've worked with the student and they have a better understanding and you want them to be able to retake the quiz or the assessment or the activity, then you can allow an extra attempt on moderate quiz, and you can even manually unlock it if it's already locked for them. And additionally, you can use Speed Grader if you wanted to be able to provide attachments, video comments, or audio that would be transcribed here to speak to the student. This is another page where you can change the point values, the total points, or add comments and update that score.
So Christy,
yeah.
we did have a question come in.
Okay.
Do you know what would happen if maybe as you were creating a quiz, you accidentally marked an incorrect answer choice and you didn't realize it until you had some students take the quiz? If you went back in there and made that change to the quiz, do you know if it would correct the grades, or do you know what would happen?
It will not correct it. So that's when most people use fudge points to make that change. You also, I mean, let's say that you knew that you needed to, and I apologize because I've got this switched over to Learning Mastery that I'm going to show you in a little bit. Let's say that I knew I needed to give it, the students all, 1 point back, then I could do that as well, just from the grade book.
Thank
But
you
yeah,
for that.
yes, you're welcome. All right, so that's the old quizzes, that's classic quizzes. But I also want to show you new quizzes because new quizzes gives you some additional functionality, including question types that I really like. And also, we will be moving towards new quizzes as the quizzing engine. So it's really good to start getting some practice with this. But when you have your quiz built in new quizzes, you have options to look at the reports here. Okay, so here's a quiz and item analysis, very similar to what you saw on classic quizzes. So you can see, all of these data points here for each individual question. You can see that item analysis. You can see which students, or excuse me, I apologize. I keep thinking this is going to be something that you click on, and this actually in the new quizzes reports, that clicking on the blue button does not open up the number of students. Most places it does, or open up the actual names of students. Most places it does, and here it does not. But it does show you the number of students who selected those responses. So you can see that item analysis there. Also, if you have connected your quiz questions to outcomes, so you'll see that I have connected my quiz questions to individual outcomes, then I also get an outcomes analysis. Now, some of these don't have a score, and that's because during demos I have added questions, but I haven't, my students had already completed those quizzes. So just know that's why there's not scores for everything. If I had my questions set up with my outcomes aligned before the students took the quiz, you would see scores for all of those questions. But here you can see for these questions, you can see, I could open it up and look at the outcome again. I could see the number of students who fall in the exceeds and did not meet. I can also, for each individual student, see what their level of mastery was on that particular outcome on this particular assessment. You also, with new quizzes, have the opportunity to look at the student's attempt, so you can see exactly what they did. You can view the log. The log looks a little different than it did on the classic quizzes, but you still have a log of their activity. You can moderate and reopen it to reopen that current attempt, or you can give them additional attempts. You can also, if the quiz had a time limit, you could give them additional time, and that's just for this one assessment. However, if you wanted to set up accommodations for a student in the class, you could also set up accommodations that would always be applied for every assessment that you have, every new quiz that the student took in your class. So you could set up, especially if there's a 504 IEP that requires that, you could set it up to give additional time in terms of hours or minutes. You could remove time limits if there is a quiz timed assessment and the student's IEP or 504 dictates that you remove that time limit. You could do that. And you could also just multiply the time. So if you wanted them to have double time, then you could do, multiply that by 2 or whatever you wanted to do. But all of these accommodations would be applied to all course assessments using new quizzes in that course. I mentioned earlier about outcomes. So I want to show you that when I'm building my quizzes and new quizzes, if I have already imported my course standards into my course, then I can connect that to a question. So I'm going to, just for the sake of demonstration, do a true-false question. And then I'm going to align outcomes. So I can select the outcome, and I have already pulled in the outcomes for my course. So I can align that outcome to that question so that now when students take that quiz, then that outcome is aligned for them. And I get reporting on based on their responses. Are there any questions about the reports in new quizzes?
No, just some cheers for the accommodations.
Hey, great. Glad to hear that. All right. So again, all those guides are there. I want to talk to you about course outcomes. So I just mentioned that if you had put them into your course, then they would be available in new quizzes. But you can see on the left-hand side of your course whether or not you have done that. They should be available to you for every instance in North Carolina if you have a paid instance, because I think all of the Canvas admin have added the North Carolina standards in there. If you don't see them, then I would definitely talk to whoever your school or district Canvas admin is. But you should see them, not necessarily the first time you look, but I'm going to show you where to find them. Also notice that slide out tray is there. But if your course outcomes aren't there, then you can go to Find and Account Standards. And then you may have to click on, let's say, like Guilford County Schools or Wake County Schools. Then you should start seeing North Carolina standards. So for most of us, our standards live under essential standards. So let's say that you wanted to pull in 6th grade science. You would go to that 6th grade science folder. Once you got there, then you would just import, and it would import all of these folders, including it pulls in all those nested objects, including the clarifying objectives. I'm not going to import those now because I already have way too many standards in this course for the demonstration purposes. So, but I've already pulled in those world language standards for me. And I mentioned that most of our standards are under essential standards. Math and ELA for most of you will not be. So you'll have to go in and look at math or ELA, especially because they were updated. And depending on the year, but they were updated recently. So most of those have a new folder and they don't live in that essential standards folder. But if I was doing like 2nd grade math, then I would be able to pull in that folder. Once you have those outcomes, you also can create rubrics that can be used over and over again. So again, if you're not doing the same type of traditional grading in this 4th quarter that you have done for the remainder of the year while you support remote learning, this is a great way to be able to still give students feedback on their progress towards your course standards and goals and their attainment of that mastery level. It's a great way for you to progress monitor and to know what additional resources, support, and activities that you want to provide in your course through the remainder of the year, is to have assignments that are aligned to outcomes. And then when you use those rubrics, like I'll show you one, let me go to my home page. When you use those rubrics for an activity to grade, you would be able to go in and grade it using the rubric. I've already done this one, but I could just click on these and it changes the grade. And once I've created that, or once I've saved that, that's going to feed into a learning mastery gradebook for me. And so let me go back to where I was. So I'm going to go back to my home. I was on SpeedGrader for that assignment. But when you're in your grade book, you have the option to see the traditional view, or you can also see a learning mastery view. And this learning mastery view is going to allow you to see how each of your students are performing against standards. Now, obviously, you have to set up those rubrics. You have to align those standards to quizzes, question banks, assignment rubrics. But once you have started aligning those outcomes to those core activities that students are submitting in Canvas and you're grading in Canvas, then you're able to see overall their mastery level on very specific standards. So you can see this is an overall for an overview of the standard. I see the average, the course average. Notice they're color coded, and I can even filter that if I just want to identify those students that need a little bit of additional reteaching, remediation, or if I want to identify the students who need enrichment on specific standards, then I can do that. But then for each student, again, I see their mastery level. I can also, in addition, I can export that report. And in addition to seeing it just as a course view, I can go into individual students and I can see their learning mastery grades as well. Generally, when you go to a student, an individual student grade, it's going to be on this assignments tab. But you also can click on that learning mastery tab if that's been turned on. Learning mastery does have to be turned on. It's another thing that has to be turned on in your district or school, and or you can turn it on in your course, and I'll show you where that is again. But then for each individual outcome that you have imported into your course, and again, I have imported way too many into mine, you can see for students if they have what they have done. Like in this particular case, there are 2 clarifying objectives aligned to this standard, and I can see that this student has demonstrated mastery on both of those. With those, I can also see the level of mastery, and I can drop down to see the actual activities and assignments, and if it was a question bank, the quiz that pulled from that question bank, the student's actual performance on that. I could go into it, open that assignment back up, look at SpeedGrader, but I can see those alignments. Question came in earlier about whether or not students can see that. And they can, as long as this setting is turned on in your course. So here, Learning Mastery Gradebook has to be turned on, as well as Student Learning Mastery Gradebook. That comes from your course settings, that feature options tab. And again, you have all of those different options that you may want to check out to see if there are things that you've not yet turned on that your district or school is allowing. There are screenshots and how-to guides, the Canvas guides on each of these pages, talking about all of the different things that we've just discussed. I'm gonna pause for questions.
Yeah, Christy, so we got a really good question that's kind of got me stumped. So I'm hoping you can help clear this up. So say I create a quiz and I add outcomes to my questions. If I share that quiz in the Canvas Commons, will those outcomes go with those questions into another course that hasn't imported outcomes?
No. And I'm sorry, that's a short answer. So one of the cool things about Canvas is we have this community. So we have, if you go to your help menu, you can get to all the Canvas guides there. You also can report a problem for most of you. Some of your districts have a different way of reporting problems, but most of you can. You can ask the community, you can submit a feature idea. I'm going to go to these feature ideas and just show you that if there's something that you want to know if it's in Canvas, this is a great way to start. I always do a search, and so Commons outcomes.
And then just while you're doing that, would it work if they shared the course versus just the individual quiz?
No, they have to.
Okay, it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to add those. And that's something that has kind of gone back and forth, and it is on our outcomes team radar. But yes, those don't come over in Canvas Commons currently. But there is a feature idea. That's what I was talking about. So you've got a feature idea, although that one was archived. Most of the time you're going to see if something doesn't get a lot of traction, then they may archive it, and or sometimes they archive it because there's a similar request already out there. But you can always vote on those things if there's something that you want to be able to do that you can't currently do.
All right, and another one that came in, what is your recommendation for moving over and finishing up our course for this year and moving that content into our getting ready for next semester or summer school?
So it's really dependent upon what your school or district allows also. So my personal preference is to share my course to Commons. So you can go to share to Commons. You may have to authorize it. You can decide, like for me, this is an update to a previously shared resource because I've already shared it before. Shared it before, but this would be new for you probably. If I was updating it, it would ask me what I was updating, and you can decide who can see it. Like you can even have it shared just to you. You could share it just to your school or your district. This would be school or district, depending if you're a charter or district. Or you could share if you're a part of a group or consortium. You could share it just them or public. You can make that decision. And then you can also, if you have the ability, some people can share as approved content or featured content. You do have to fill in this information, but then you could have that available to Commons. And the reason I like to do it that way is because that way, if I want to share it with another teacher, it's an easy thing for me to do. If you leave and transfer districts, then as long as you've not just shared it to these two, if you've shared it publicly, then you're able to, see that course again, next year at a new school district, if you're allowed to do that. But some people do disable that ability to share publicly. So I just wanted to again, it depends on that setting. Another thing you can do is to export the course content. If you want, it saves it into a file. It's not something that you're going to be able to open and look at, but you can import that file then next year. So you can export it, and then you can go into content type and you can import that Canvas course export package, and then it would ask you to look for that file. You also can just import from a previous Canvas course. So I could do, if I knew what the course name was, then I could just decide to import that way when I had my new course next year. You won't have your PowerSchool generated shells until at least July. We let each school district decide when they want us to put the new ones in there after the PowerSchool rollover, which usually happens from DPI on the first week of July. So you won't actually have your new courses to import content into until then. But some of your districts or schools also allow you to have sandbox courses. So if you have a sandbox course, you can import the content into there. You also, if your district or school allows you to copy the course, you can copy the course, and that would allow you to just make a copy of it that you had to play with, to work on, to edit over the summer or at the beginning of next year. Again, this is not going to be, the copy is not going to be your PowerSchool connected class, but it would be one for you to work on and build in. And also some people, again, this depends on the district or school setting, on your dashboard, you can go to, down, you don't usually have this many courses, but you can, on the right-hand side, if you have the ability to start a new course, you could create a course there, and then again, use that course import feature that I mentioned previously from your settings page. After you created that new course, you could just import from there.
All right. Other? Thank you, Christy. I think that gave a nice overview.
Great. All right, well, I appreciate everyone being here with us tonight. If there are no more questions, then I'll let you all get back to your evening. Thank you for all of those who've attended, especially anyone who's attended all year. We really appreciate that participation and hope that you have found these sessions valuable. Pam, have you dropped the survey in chat again?
I just did, yes. And so just as a reminder, please take the survey to give us your feedback for the webinars that you would like to see next year. And also please note that I will be in touch within 5 business days after tonight to process your CEU certificates, as well as give you a link to the recording and a copy of the PowerPoint that Christy used tonight. So we thank you very much, and thank you to Lindsay and Molly for joining us and helping out with chat and questions. And we hope everyone has a wonderful night and happy Teacher Appreciation Week.
Thank you all.